I felt the scalding, sticky weight of the liquid before I even heard the cup hit the floor. Dark, bitter espresso bloomed across my white silk blazer like a spreading ink blot, the heat seeping through to my skin. In the sudden vacuum-like silence of the hospital lobby, the only sound was the rhythmic drip, drip, drip of coffee hitting the polished marble. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just looked down at the ruin of a suit that had been the last birthday gift my father ever gave me. Behind me, a shrill, rehearsed sob broke the silence. "Oh my God, look what you did! You pushed me, you ruined my custom dress!" I turned slowly. Standing there was a girl who looked like she'd wandered off a reality TV set and accidentally ended up in a place of healing. She was barely 22, caked in contour and wearing a hot pink dress so tight it looked painful. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at her iPhone, which was mounted on a gimbal, the screen glowing with a cascade of scrolling emojis and live heart icons. "Everyone, you saw that, right?" she wailed to her followers, her eyes dry and calculating. "This crazy woman just assaulted a healthcare worker. I'm literally shaking." She looked at me then, her eyes narrowing into a venomous slits. She leaned in, whispering so only I could hear, the scent of cheap perfume and arrogance rolling off her. "You're dead, Karen. Do you have any idea who my husband is? Mark Thompson, the CEO. He owns this place. He owns you. You'll never get a doctor to look at you in this city ever again." I felt a cold, sharp tremor of irony go through me. Mark Thompson, my husband. The man I had spent 10 years building, polishing, and protecting. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing against the cool glass of my own phone. I looked at the coffee stain, then at the girl's name tag, Tiffany Henry, intern. "You want the CEO?" I asked, my voice coming out as a low, dangerous hum. "Let's get the CEO. But to understand how we got to this marble floor, we have to go back 12 hours. The Boeing 787 had touched down at JFK with a heavy thud that rattled my teeth. I'd spent 30 days in Frankfurt navigating the cold, clinical boardrooms of German medical manufacturers. I was the chief strategy officer of Apex Medical Group, but that was just the title on the door. In reality, I owned 60% of the company. I was the legacy. My father had built this empire from a single clinic, and since his passing, his weight had settled permanently onto my shoulders. Mark, my husband, was the face. He was handsome, charming, and spoke in the kind of silver-tongued platitudes that investors loved. But he couldn't negotiate a paper bag out of a corner. I had gone to Germany to secure a fleet of state-of-the-art MRI machines, a job he should have done because I knew if he went, we'd overpay by millions. I didn't tell him I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to see the hospital through the eyes of a stranger, to see if the culture of care my father died for was still alive. I stepped into the lobby of Apex University Hospital at 9:15 a.m. It was a cathedral of blue-tinted glass and antiseptic. Usually I use the private executive entrance, but today I pulled my own suitcase through the front doors. The first thing I saw wasn't a doctor. It was David Chen. David was the head of cardiology, my oldest friend from medical school, and the only man in this building who didn't care about the stock price. He was on his knees in the center of the lobby, his white scrubs soaked with sweat, performing rhythmic, bone-cracking CPR on an elderly man who had collapsed. "Nurse, glucose, now!" David barked. His focus was absolute. He didn't see the crowd. He didn't see me. He was a man holding back death with his bare hands. That was the Apex I knew. But then the contrast hit like a slap. Not 10 feet away from David's life-or-death struggle, Tiffany was berating Henry, our head valet. Henry was a Vietnam veteran who had worked for my father for 30 years. He was 70 years old, bowing his white head as this girl screamed at him because his slow walking had left her Mercedes in the sun for 5 minutes. "You move like a turtle," she shrieked before turning to her Livestream to pucker her lips for the camera. Ugh, the help here is so incompetent, guys. Stay positive, though. Tap that heart. The rage began as a slow simmer in my chest. This was what Mark had allowed while I was away? This was the professional standard he'd promised to uphold? I walked over to Henry, placed a hand on his trembling shoulder, and silenced him with a look when he tried to say my name. I turned to the girl. "The workday started over an hour ago," I said, my voice like a scalpel. "You are late, you are out of uniform, and you are harassing a senior staff member. Put the phone away." That's when it happened, the dismissive sneer. The bitter old hag comment to her camera, and then the deliberate lunge. She didn't trip. She turned, checked her camera angle, and slammed her iced coffee directly into my chest. And now, here we were. The crowd was growing. People were filming. David had finished with his patient and was standing up, his eyes widening as he recognized me. He started toward us, his face darkening with a protective fury I hadn't seen in years. "Katherine, are you hurt?" David's voice was a low rumble. Tiffany laughed, a sharp, grating sound. "Oh, you're friends with this loser doctor? Perfect. Mark can fire both of you at once. He's my baby. He bought me this dress. He's going to make me a star." I looked at David. He knew. He saw the coffee, saw the girl, and he saw the betrayal written in the lines of my face. "Don't," I whispered to David as he reached for his radio to call security. "This is a family matter. I want to see this play out." I pulled out my phone. I dialed the number labeled "My Love." It rang 3 times. Mark answered in that hushed, important man. Whisper he used when he wanted to sound busy. "Honey, I'm in the middle of a massive meeting with the Singapore investors. Is everything okay? Did you land?" I put the phone on speaker. The lobby went so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. "I'm in the lobby, Mark," I said. My voice was devoid of emotion. "Come down, now." "The lobby? Honey, I told you, this meeting is critical for the hospital's future. Go home, take a bath, I'll be there for dinner." "Mark," I interrupted, "your wife just threw coffee on me. She's currently live streaming your secret to 10,000 people. If you aren't down here in 3 minutes, I'm calling Arthur Vance, and we're discussing the $2 million missing from the MRI procurement fund." Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence from the other end of the line. Then the sound of a chair screeching back, and the line went dead. Tiffany's face went from a triumphant pink to a sickly, chalky white. The phone in her hand trembled. What did you just say?" I said, I leaned in, my eyes locked on hers, "that you should keep that live stream running. The climax is about to begin." 2 minutes and 40 seconds later, the executive elevator dinged. Mark burst out like a man running from a fire. His tie was crooked, his forehead slick with sweat. He saw the crowd, saw the cameras, and then he saw me, standing there in a coffee-stained suit, flanked by David Chen and my lead counsel, Arthur Vance, who had appeared from the shadows like a grim reaper in a pinstripe suit. Tiffany let out a squeal of relief and ran toward him. "Mark, baby, you're here. This crazy woman assaulted me. She's lying about money. Mark didn't hug her. He didn't even look at her with affection. He looked at her with the pure, unadulterated hatred of a man who sees his golden goose being slaughtered because of a foolish mistake. Smack. The sound of Mark's hand hitting Tiffany's face echoed off the glass walls. She spun, falling hard onto the marble, her phone skittering across the floor. "I don't know this woman," Mark screamed, his voice cracking with desperation. He turned to me, his hands shaking as he reached out. "Katherine, honey, she's a stalker. She's delusional. I've never seen her before in my life." I looked at the girl on the floor. She was clutching her red cheek, staring at the man who had promised her the world, seeing him for the coward he was. "You don't know her?" I asked. I signaled to Arthur. Arthur stepped forward and opened a leather dossier. "Mark Thompson, we have the deeds to the condo in Hudson Yards you purchased in Miss Jones's name. We have the wire transfers from the Apex procurement account to her personal savings, and we have the security footage from the Mandarin Oriental." Mark's knees hit the floor. He didn't fall. He collapsed. He grabbed the hem of my stained pants, sobbing, his face a mask of pathetic terror. "Katherine, please, it was a mistake. I was lonely while you were away. Don't do this. Think of the children. Think of the company." I looked down at him. I felt no anger. I felt only a profound sense of waste. "The company isn't yours, Mark," I said, my voice carrying to the very back of the lobby. "It never was. You were just a placeholder for a man who actually cared." I looked up at the crowd, at the nurses, the patients, the janitors who had stopped to watch the fall of a king. "My name is Katherine Hayes," I announced, chairwoman of the board. "Mark Thompson is terminated, effective immediately. David Chen is your interim CEO." The guards moved in then, hauling Mark to his feet. He didn't go quietly. He was screaming, begging, a broken man being dragged out of the temple he'd defiled. I turned to Tiffany. She was still on the floor, her makeup smeared with tears, and spilled coffee. "You wanted to be famous," I said, pointing to her phone, which was still live on the floor, recording everything. "Congratulations, you're the top trending topic in New York. I hope the likes were worth the prison sentence for embezzlement." I walked out of the lobby, the clicking of my heels the only sound in the room. David followed me out into the humid New York air. "Katherine," he said, catching my arm. "What now?" I looked at the skyline, at the city my father had helped build. The weight on my shoulders was still there, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a foundation. "Now," I said, looking at the coffee stain on my heart. "I go home. I change my clothes. And then, David, we fix this hospital." I didn't look back. The sun was setting, casting long golden shadows over the city, and for the first time, the air felt clean. The storm had passed, and though the ruins were still smoking, I knew exactly how to build something better from the ashes,